Hello everyone, my name is Ziamaro and welcome to Battlerite Sage. Let's talk about team comps. So we've all heard that every champion is viable in one way or another, but what really matters is the team comp. So what does a good team comp look like, and how do you know if something's going to work or not? I'll start out by saying that 3v3 is pretty well balanced. If you throw a healer and 2 DPS together, you can probably make it work. So when you're in solo queue, don't panic about the comp too much. It's almost always winnable. But that aside, let's talk about how to put a good comp together. The first rule of thumb, and this is what most people will tell you, is to build around the support. Some supports just naturally enable certain DPS better than others, so it's a great starting point. Have a think about what each support does and how it might enable a teammate. Let's take Shifu for example. Shifu is one of the stickiest melee champions in the game, and it's very difficult to peel a good Shifu. The way most people will deal with Shifu is to bait out his fleet foot and counter and then focus him. If he's already burnt all his outs chasing his opponent, then he'll be in a very bad situation. This is where a support like Lucy might step in. Her barrier absorbs 50 damage for 2.5 seconds. This gives Shifu another 2.5 seconds of uptime and a chance for his other cooldowns to recover. On top of that, Lucy can take a Battlerite that will increase movement speed by 33% while the barrier is active. So this gives Shifu even more sticking power. And if that weren't enough, her and Shifu have great synergy with their crowd control abilities. Shifu can incapacitate multiple targets at once, while Lucy, with certain Battlerites, can AoE panic, so you can create some really great crowd control combos. That leads me nicely into my next point. There are 2 ways that champions can synergize. First, let's take a look at covering weaknesses. Every champion has inherent weaknesses. Destiny, for example, has a lack of reliable iframes. You could cover this weakness by putting her with a Paloma. Paloma offers other side and, in a pinch, her EX space ability, Soul Transfer. That gives Destiny 2 iframes that she wouldn't otherwise have. You could also pair Destiny with Taya because she offers an iframe with her Tornado as well. Some melee characters like Raigon have an all-in kind of style. He does great damage, but sometimes he has to use his escapes as gap closers. To cover this weakness, you could take a champion that can shield him. Let's take another example with Croak. He has some great burst damage, but his uptime is fairly low. So for that reason, you want to pair him up with someone who can make the most of the burst windows. So you could pair him up with Jade for the stun into snipe combo, or you can pair him with someone who can chain CC with him. Pearl can do this quite well, for example, by silencing straight after the stun. The second way to build a comp is to double down on a strength. Have a think about a character and think about what they do well, and then pick another character that has the same strengths. One of my favourite examples of this is Pearl and Destiny. Both of them can slow projectiles, which makes them really good against ranged champions. And on top of that, they can both silence, which leads to long periods where the enemy can't do anything. They don't exactly cover each other's weaknesses, but by doubling down on their strengths, they can create immense offensive pressure. I mentioned Croak and Jade before, but they're actually an example of a pair that can both cover each other's weaknesses and double down on strengths. Both of them have stealth, and those abilities can force escapes out of your opponent. Quite often you can force an opponent to use their mobility or counter to avoid a snipe. But if they do that, then they're not going to have it to avoid the Croak stun. And as I mentioned, they both have stealth, which can really mess with your opponent's head. So I've mentioned a lot of pairs that work together because it's easier to think about how 2 champions might synergize than it is to think about 3. But if you want to make a 3v3 comp, then just throw another champion into the mix using the same principles. Does this champion cover the weaknesses of the others? Or does it double down on a strength? If you can find 3 champions that both double down on a strength and cover each other's weaknesses, then you have yourself a really great comp. I prefer to encourage critical thinking and for people to think for themselves rather than just reeling off a bunch of comps. I think by understanding why a comp works for yourself, you'll become a better player in the long run. However, in the interest of illustrating my point, I'll give you a couple of examples of great comps. First, Jade, Croak and Blossom. You can actually substitute Blossom for Lucy or Paloma and it's still a great comp, but let's use this one for an example. All 3 have stealth, all 3 have stuns. Jade and Blossom both have AoE shields and pushback, so they're very good at peeling for each other. And then you have the big burst combo. Croak stun into snipe into bloom. You can keep a single target locked down for a really long time and do some serious burst in the process. It is a very pokey comp, but thanks to the double AoE shields, the stealth and the decent mobility, you can burst and reset quite easily. It's not an easy comp to play because it requires good coordination and discipline, but in the right hands it is very strong. Second, let's take a look at Shifu, Lucy, and our brand new champion, Alicia. It's still early days, but I do think this is a top tier comp in the making. If you're at all familiar with WoW, then I would compare it to Rogue Mage and Priest. So let's run through what I think makes it so strong. First of all, you have Shifu. He does incredible bursts and has the ability to stick to his opponents, as I mentioned before. Lucy and Alicia both offer shields, and they can increase movement speed with the right Battlerites. This allows Shifu to play really aggressively. Because shields can be cast through walls, Shifu can carry on chasing people down for a lot longer than he would in any other comp. I think that aspect alone would make the comp really great because it really enables Shifu to do a lot of damage. But then you have what I think makes this really, really good, which is the CC combos. It doesn't happen often, but when the stars align, you can keep the whole enemy team locked down for like 7 seconds. Shifu has his AoE incap, Lucy can AoE panic, and then Alicia has her AoE freeze with her ultimate. Plus, if you take Cryogenic Lance, you can AoE chill with the Ice Lance and then freeze multiple people with the Flash Freeze. So between the pressure that the whole team can put out and the AoE CC, it feels like a crazy strong comp, and I do expect to see a lot of teams trying this out. So those are just 2 examples, and there are so many synergies between the different champions. So let us know in the comments what you've been trying out and why you think certain champions might work really well together. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe for more Battlerite content, news and discussion. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.